Yeah, it says going live in 1 minute.
And we're live. Good evening, Geoff. How are you?
Good evening, Jerry. How you doing?
I'm
Good. How you
I'm
doing?
doing good. So this is the first lowland cycling Friday evening cafe. New idea, new concept.
Yeah,
So
I love it.
it's we are just talking, and hopefully people will join and join us via the chat and interact where possible. And um, there will be few people now, but hopefully more people in the future. And so
Absolutely.
it's Friday, May 15th, 7 o'clock Eastern, over here in Chester County. It's a beautiful day today, 85 degrees, super
Yeah,
warm. I hope that people found the time to go out and have a nice ride. And how have you been? How did your was your week like? Any cycling or primarily work?
yeah, some work and some cycling. I was able to get out for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and from all of our recent discussions, I reinstated my Zwift account and got back on Zwift.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it had been. I looked. I think it was 2 years was the last time I rode a Zwift
Mm-hmm.
uh, ride. So it was interesting to see all the changes. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Although it did take more setup than I anticipated. Um, yeah, just with all the new
Mm-hmm.
devices and everything on Bluetooth. But once I got set up, I hopped into it was supposed to be an easy sea ride, but
Okay.
ended up being pretty difficult.
Yeah. It's yeah. If you've done Swift before and you uh, have been out for I don't know a year or maybe even longer, a lot has changed. And you ride a Wahoo Kicker, right, with Bluetooth connection. Yeah. Some
Yes.
changes there for the
Yep.
better. I think it's much more stable than it was, and you don't have to fool around with the ANT plus connections and so forth. So that's really really good. You did have
Good.
somewhat of an incident going out on your mountain bike, I believe.
I did. I did last Saturday. We had a cold snap. It
Hmm.
was 30 degrees at 6 in the morning when I was going to go ride,
Right.
and I just couldn't bundle up and do a big road ride in the cold again. So I decided to go down to New Jersey
Hmm.
to some trails that are very safe. You know, they're sandy. They're not a whole lot of elevation. We usually do them in December, so I
Right.
figured that would be a safe trail to ride. Little did I know that there was a lot of trees that had fallen down the week before
Mm.
from a storm, and at 30 degrees, all the dew that was on them turned to ice,
Right.
and slipped out on one of them, hit my shoulder. It was just as soon as I hit the ground, I knew like my ride was over.
Yeah.
I was planning to go out for 4 hours, made it 45 minutes into the ride, and then I just hobbled back to the car and went home. So unfortunately, things like that happen. It was a wake up call. Under this new COVID, we need to be careful and
Absolutely.
ride in areas that are closer in case any incidents happen.
Hmm.
I was an hour and a half from home, so I've learned my lesson.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep it more local this time.
Yeah, and it's You're absolutely right, and you do have to be careful. If there's one place now that you don't want to end up at, is that's the hospital. It's never good to end up in the hospital, but especially now it's uh, more difficult. And an accident happening, it's in a split second, right? You probably hop
Right.
those trees a gazillion times, and now due to the weather circumstances, you fall, and the weather is crazy. It's um, winter, and then within a couple of days we're at 85 Fahrenheit, and
Right.
it's warm and sweaty and muggy. But again, like I said before, it's nice to ride. I was safe and riding Swift, so did my group rides with my fellow Swifters in the community. I did the USA Cycling organized ride on Wednesday, and that's so somebody is pointing that the sound needs to go up. Okay, yeah. So and so that was fun. I ride the B category, and just going full out, full gas. It's always a hard ride, but a ton of fun to do and safe, right?
Yeah.
So that's good. It's a lot of cycling news. Even now with COVID and a lockdown, people in the virtual world, and I believe you had an article that you kind of chose and wanted to share with the people, and I think that's that's big news in the cycling world. Let me show it on the screen. So it's this fellow over here.
Oh, there we go. Yep. Yeah, Chris Froome. Looks like he's potentially leaving Team Ineos mid-season, and it's interesting to see how they're training for races that are typically in their off season. And now he's really betting large for this race. He wants to come back and win a fifth time. And he believes he could do it better with another team. He has two teams that are interested in him. So I think it could be a real battle, when we see him race again. What do
Yeah,
you think about it?
it's very interesting because it happened before, but somebody with a name as and having won the Tour de France for what is it, four times, right? If this is the fifth time, mid-season transfer to another team, that's unheard of.
Right.
I I do think I don't know. I understand why, right? You have Bernal and Geraint Thomas, who both want to do the same, and now with the whole,
Right.
let's say, season condensed into basically 2 months, where you have the Grand Tours, you have the classics, you have the World Championship. There's so much going on in a very short amount of time. Um, he's probably thinking, okay, let me find a team that's kind of more built around me than me having to share with two other absolute aces.
Right. Right.
As mentioned, Bernal and Geraint Thomas, and I don't know, at least half a dozen other very good riders on that team.
Yes. Yeah.
So that will be an
There was.
interesting development. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The and there are a couple of different teams that he is looking at. I think the Israeli and startup nation is actually very interesting. I think that's really an up and coming team, and I they were front and center with the Tour for All and Swift. They did a pretty good
Mm-hmm.
job there. Really taking it to the other pro team. So that was very interesting. but I also heard a couple of other teams that might be interested in him, obviously. So yeah, so that's very interesting news.
Did you watch the documentary on the Movistar team that was on Netflix?
No, I didn't. I still have it on their have to see favorites. Yeah.
Yeah. It was fantastic, and it really shows you how having multiple leaders and figuring it out mid race is not ideal. You could see just how they're really racing against each other to try to get ahead in the GC, and the team would just keep switching between leaders. And yeah, you could see the dynamics of how that just doesn't work, in these Grand Tours. It's great. It's a great series. I think it's only 6 episodes, but definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, and it always has been like that, right? When you look at Greg LeMond and Bernard Hinault, that's an epic story, right? The Badger and LeMond and promising that no, you are going to win now, and he really wasn't. And it happened a number of times in different teams and different Tour de France's, and it's to your point. They always look, quote unquote, who's leading, who's in the best shape, and obviously as a team and a team director and the sponsors, you never want to put all your eggs in one basket and make sure that you kind of spread the chances. But for these number one captains, leaders of a team, it's very, very difficult. Yeah. Interesting. The another interesting topic, and that's my fellow, let's say, Dutchman, Laurens ten Dam, and I'm clicking on the wrong tab, but here we go. So Laurens ten Dam just retired last year, and he has a podcast. It's mainly in Dutch. He has a very interesting story. He lived, I think, over a year in the US on the West Coast. Did some races there. He was allowed by his team to do that. He really likes the US, and he had great plans this year to do the Dirty Kansas, do a couple of other rides. And now with the COVID, a lot of these events got cancelled or also postponed. He came up with an idea to, and I'll show that here, to do a Dirty Cancelled. So as you see over here, so obvious reasons, Dirty Kansas is not going to happen on the original date. Going to celebrate cycling, a love that gives me, etc., etc. But like in an event, there are some rules. Build your own route. Mine is already in the making since March for 100 or 200 miles. Start at 6. So he laid out the same type of rules as there is with the real Dirty Kansas. Ride in solo and pairs according to your local COVID rules. Make sure to celebrate. So that's his big thing, right? He loves and that's his motto, like live slow, ride fast. So take your time to enjoy your ride, to make sure that you hang out with your friends and your fellow cyclists before, during, but also especially after the race. Have a couple of beers, do a barbecue, enjoy yourself. And so he's been doing that. He's been planning that. I highly recommend going to his Instagram and his website. He has got a couple of videos on YouTube. I think they are subtitled in English too. Very, very interesting. And he just does a great job at really showing a lot of very good content. And he brings his own flavor, his own personality to cycling. And I think that's great.
Yeah, he's definitely a character. I think all of his teammates just love him. You know, you hear all these other retired cyclists, and first of all, I love that they're retired and they're racing harder than they did when they were pro tour. I mean, you look at Ted King and Lawrence Tendam and Phil Guyman. I mean, these guys are just crushing it.
Oh, absolutely.
And living a great life. Like taking their time, going to different locations, treated like celebrities, doing great work for their sponsors, just absolutely getting their name out there every chance they get. But yeah, I think this is just genius. Encourage everyone to go out and make their own route. Just because the race is canceled doesn't mean that we can't ride these big epic rides and set our goals for ourselves. Right?
No, absolutely. And the one other thing, and it's mentioned here. It's a an app and also a website called Komoot, and that's how they planned the ride. So I think it's the company's from Austria, or it's road cycling, hiking, backpacking, mountain biking. But the nice thing here is that you can plan your route. It's very intuitive, user friendly, and then all the planning apps are getting better and better. But the really cool thing here is that it's got a huge database and a lot of routes that plan a route even when it's on off the given road or track. So when you're looking for gravel roads or dirt roads or climbs that don't have an official road, you probably can find it here on Komoot. And I know it's very well known in the Netherlands and in Europe. I don't hear too many people speaking of it in the US, but obviously that might be me. But you weren't really familiar with this tool either, right?
No, I've seen it as a connection. You can connect your Strava to it and things like that.
Yep.
But no, I haven't used it. I'd be curious to see what routes we have locally.
Right.
Using that utility.
Yeah, I'll absolutely look into it. I've never done it myself either, but it looks super interesting, and obviously Lawrence and them triggered me to have a look. I was curious to find out what it is. It looks very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, we're kind of blessed where we are because we have a lot of gravel roads and things around here. And if you do things like the Brandywine Roubaix, they piece together all these little sections, little sectors that you never knew existed, right? Like, what goes up that hill?
Right.
Turns out it goes to gravel, and then you're onto an old, mining road or old railroad tracks. And we have a patchwork of really good roads that no one really knows about. So I'm curious to see if it's on Komoot also.
Exactly. It's and everything is connected now. So even the routes are connected. So somebody has a great route, you know how to connect to that route. So bam, there you go. You have an additional 20 miles to your gravel route because you can just plug it into your Wahoo or your Garmin or whatever, let's say, computer you're using, and there you go. And I think that's pretty amazing to do that. Yeah.
I was out riding last weekend, and I realized I was past my time for turnaround, and I was meandering. I was following an old GXP file that I had on my Garmin or my Wahoo. So I was riding to that, and then I was like, I need to get home as quick as possible. And I pulled up the Wahoo app, and it says, take me back to the start. And it doesn't retrace the route. It just goes back to where your start was.
Okay.
And that was the first time I used it, and it took me on all these roads I'd never been on took me right to the house. And a lot of times I was second guessing it, thinking I'm going the wrong way. Sure enough, when I looked at the map, it was the most direct route, and I was like, "This is so cool." There's like features I still didn't know, and when you use them, you're kind of blown away at how good everything's gotten.
Yeah, and that's we already touched upon that topic a couple of times. The fact that we like data so much, and this is just another form of data, and it's there to again. It's when we were preparing for this live and sitting in on your deck, right? Our podcast, the website, now the live is really all about getting people to cycle or people to cycle more and really enjoy doing it. And I think tools like Komoot, your Wahoo, your computers, etc., make that ride more enjoyable. The times that you've gone out before there was a mobile phone, or before there was a touchscreen on your mobile phone, and you just had to literally figure out, I want to do an hour ride. You took a wrong turn. You really didn't know where you are. You end up with a 2-hour ride. It started raining. You have to, I don't know, knock on somebody's door to say, hey, where am I? I need to get back to X, Y, Z. It literally happens, right? And that's now with all the tools at your disposal, it's so much more enjoyable. Yeah, absolutely. So let me see there. Yeah, so obviously we do more stuff than just going live on a Friday evening and talking and chatting about cycling. We also have a cycling podcast. So let me look and share my screen again and keep on speaking in the mic. And here we go. We have our podcast on Apple Podcast. For everybody listening, you can also find our podcast on Spotify, on Alexa, on Google, and a number of smaller platforms. So if you look for the N+1 Cycling Podcast by Lowland Cycling, or just look for Lowland Cycling, we probably will pop up. And as you see on the screen, we just released our 7th podcast, and this was a very interesting one. So we spoke with Dave Grant, local cyclist here in Chester County, and he in his early 20s he knew somebody, introduced him to a team in the Netherlands. So in his early 20s he went to the Netherlands and raced his bike over there. So we just released this one on Wednesday. I think it was a great conversation, if I say so myself, and he has a great story to tell.
Yeah, I think he got really excited about it too and started digging through some of his old race photos. And after the podcast, he was sending us stuff like, "Oh, I found these photos too." But yeah, not only did he just end up racing over there, he rode for one of the most famous teams, one of the most famous development teams that you knew as a fan. So there was like all of this serendipity, right? Or
exactly.
seeing you and Dave cross paths. Yeah, I mean there was a lot of times that we knew each other's story, from different angles. So that was good.
Yeah. And he's a very active racer still, right? Cyclocross, road, track. So he had all these plans, and just like many of us, these plans kind of vaporized it with the whole COVID and the lockdown. But his latest, he was really preparing and looking at the riding on the track. Found a great sponsor, and so that kind of fell on the wayside. And that's something that a lot of people are dealing with that are competitive cyclists. And the our next podcast which will be released on next Wednesday. We speak with Eric Hofman. Eric is a coach. He has a company called Dutch Diesel Cycling, Dutch Diesel Coaching, and we talk about coaching, we talk about cycling, we talk a lot about Swift also. He is also, let's say, the founding father of the Dutch Diesel cycling community on Swift, with a lot of, let's say, very loyal and followers, and we're growing that group. But that also, you didn't know Eric, but I think was a great podcast also.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I learned a lot. He comes at it from a different angle, being able to coach people that aren't necessarily racing, but are just want to get in shape, and even junior riders, coaching them on mountain biking, which is really interesting. I think it's a good listen for anyone that's interested in getting fast and hearing what a coach has to say about today's times.
Yeah, we talk a lot about motivation. We talk about the Swift platform, how it can help you. We also talk about a couple of risks doing that, and excellent point. The how we started with youth cycling and mountain biking, and that was again a great link to one of our previous podcasts where we spoke with Todd and Mike from Pickle, and that's all about youth cycling in this area in Pennsylvania. That was our sixth podcast. So obviously, we highly recommend listening to that one also. But for people that are interested in youth mountain biking, wonder what it is, whether it's for your child or maybe you want to get involved yourself, that's also a great podcast. And then without spoiling yet who it is, I think we have a super exciting guest that we are going to interview this Sunday. An elite athlete, and I don't want to spoil too much,
at the highest level.
At the very, very highest level. So we're very happy, very honored, and very excited to have her on the podcast, and we look forward to speaking with her and to learn more about her and her, let's say, current involvement with cycling. So that's going to be another great podcast. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And we have some other ones lined up that we're gonna tackle. We're gonna try some different angles as well. Just people that are enthusiastic about riding, maybe not racers, but people that are in the community that are developing cycling from different angles. So yes, definitely stay tuned because we're gonna have some good podcasts coming up for sure.
I see somebody made a comment. It will show up on your screen shortly, but it's actually Rosemary who introduced us to the guest. So again, thanks Rosemary. It's we're super excited, and we still got a spot for you on the podcast too, Rosemary. If you're ready, you're more than welcome. I think you have a great story too. So we spoke about some of the news. We spoke about the podcast. I think you had another, and that just amazing. And if you talk about people that recently retired from pro racing and the things that they do, I think this is yet another very super cool thing that Phil Gammon did.
Right.
So if you
I don't know if you watch his YouTube channel, but his videos are very entertaining.
Yeah.
And this one will not let you down either. He broke it into two parts, but he wanted to take the record for the Everesting Challenge, which is 29,000 feet and 29,029 feet.
Yeah.
And he and his training buddy went out, found the right hill.
Mm-hmm.
They talked to the guy that currently holds the record, or previously held the record, and just to ask him, his advice, the technique that he used. They mapped this road out, found. They give you all the tips on like how to take one of these records, and he achieved it, beat it by 25 minutes.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
It's amazing. Look at that the time, and then especially the elevation. So average over that 8 hours of 281 watts.
That's insane.
That's crazy. So
and that's including a downhill, right? Because they were coasting downhill.
Exactly. So yeah, good point. So that makes it even more impressive. So and then beating it by 25 minutes, that's going to be a tough challenge for the next challenger for that King of the Mountain or that Everesting. So I know that people are doing it, for example, on Swift, and they spend 8, 9, 10, 12 hours on Swift trying to do the Everest at once. I think Geraint Thomas actually did it on Swift not too long ago. So that's in a virtual world, but that picture is epic. Like completely wasted. It's funny. So these guys, they like you said, they have really good content. They present themselves on YouTube, but they also challenge each other. So you have I forgot his first name, but Sanders, the triathlete, who also goes out and takes all the King of the Mountains in the KOMs in his area. And he is basically then stealing it from another famous rider who then goes back and tries to get back his KOM. So it's fun to keep track of. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if you followed Phil's story, but he actually qualified for the Olympics, so he was going to be in the Olympic track team. Because they saw like his fitness level, and they said, "Well, we think he could really be a contender." So he had a whole series on preparing for the Olympics, but unfortunately, it was derailed in Pennsylvania. He had a crash on our track in Trexletown.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
Yeah, it was a horrible crash. He was in the hospital for several days, and he wouldn't have been able to attend the Olympics had they gone on anyways. But there was a whole series of him going for the Olympic.
Right.
The Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah, track racing is the velodrome is great, but if you crash, it can be very, very painful. I think the I've never been there, but the velodrome in Trexletown is concrete, right? It's outdoor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Outdoor. Right.
A lot of the or most tracks in the Netherlands that I know of are indoor, and they are it's wood. So if they fall there, they literally have to take out all the bits and pieces of wood, the splinters that they catch when they crash and slide over the track for 10 or 20 meters. So that's painful, but great discipline, very specialized. Let me see what else. What else is new? So one thing that I wanted to show the viewers, and I think that's interesting. And if you have a license with USA Cycling, let me show that on screen. You probably have received this email, and so they are organizing a webinar basically where you can ask questions on the impact Also, if you are an organizer of events and races. So I think that's a good thing. So that's Monday, May 18th. Actually, this Monday, 2 o'clock Mountain is this, I believe. So that's what is this? 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock Eastern. So I'll be probably will be dialing in, and I'm very interested to find out what the plans are for the near future.
Right.
So that's an interesting event to look out for.
Yeah. They also sent out a survey. I don't. Did you receive that? I think it was Wednesday night or Thursday.
Yeah.
And they were asking about events. Would you be willing to go to an event? What would be the size? And then what I thought was interesting, and this came up with the interview with Eric,
Yeah.
was they said, would you be interested in doing an indoor event?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, that could be indoor track, right?
Yeah.
But it could also be a Zwift event,
Yeah.
potentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, and again, if you still have the time and you did get that, I think that it's important to give your opinions, to fill in the survey. I think
Absolutely.
U.S. Cycling Federation will be happy with more people filling in that survey, because it gives a better, let's say, view on what's going on in everybody's mind. And although I think that a lot of people are very, very eager to go back to competition, the safety first, right? I know there is
Absolutely.
a lot of different opinions there, so I won't go into that too deep. But this is an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to voice your opinion, and let's make use of that. So
yes, yeah. They also, did you see the email that came out today about the calendar? They were saying that nationals, track nationals, would be postponed till no earlier than September 1st.
Okay.
So they're not giving any hard dates, but they're just saying it's not going to happen before the first.
Right.
Mountain bike nationals, which is in Winter Park, I believe, was first no earlier than July.
Okay.
So we'll see if that happens.
Yeah.
That's tricky because that's at altitude and they can get snow, early, right? So their window is a lot shorter for doing something like that.
Right.
But it's good that they're keeping everyone updated and letting them know like the information as they got it.
Yeah. For the people that are listening, don't hesitate to leave something in the chat if you have a question or opinion or something else interesting. Please don't hesitate to pitch in, and we love to see your chat and your interaction. So one other thing, looking at the next week, one thing that I want to share is that, and now also with you, Geoff, getting back on Swift. I know that there are people that don't do Swift, just Zero or any other, let's say, indoor training platform, and they always prefer to go out, which I completely understand, completely respect. It's great to go out there, but in case you are looking for something on Swift, let me change my screen again. Close this. This is an example of, this is actually Eric's website about his coaching, etc., etc. And Dutch Diesel, the group where I'm part of, and Eric kind of founded, and we have a really nice group of ride leaders. We have a race, and that's tomorrow morning at 11. All 4 categories, so the A, B, C's, and D's. So that's at 11 Eastern. So if you want to do a nice race, it's what they call La Guardia. It's the New York, one of the New York courses. Pretty intense, some climbing, and later uh, that evening, it's 5:30. Let me see here, 5:30 um, Eastern is the Dutch diesel elevation ride. So that's a nice ride to. It's a B ride, so we'll be looking at least 2.5 watts per kilogram average doing that ride. Probably will take 2.5 hours to finish. So that's a pretty intense ride. I'll be leading that, and another ride that I'll be leading is the Sunday morning back to our roots ride. So that's 90 minutes, just a nice pace, about 2.2 watts per kilogram average. Much more relaxed than the other one, pretty flat, and that's a nice race. Just a plug for Dutch Diesel Cycling. If you're interested, come check those out. It's a lot of fun, a lot of chat on the screen, and if you're interested to speak, you can always join us on Discord. More details on that later. Oh, and that brings me actually to something that Swift related that you wanted to share, because my eye caught that, and that's this. Right, it's the mountain bike for Swift, and you're looking to find out what that is, right, Geoff?
Yeah, yeah. I actually ordered the adapter for my Garmin mount so that I can put my computer on there so I can
Mm.
turn the front wheel and start trying the off-road trails on Zwift. So I've been away from Zwift for so long that I have questions for Jerry.
Yeah.
So I think we may do something where we record me on Zwift and he can give me some tips on how to do it. Because I see people giving high fives and chatting, and I hooked up a Bluetooth keyboard to my Apple TV,
Yeah.
but I was trying to just ride and not type to people, so I don't know how everyone's doing all this at once. Seems like a lot to juggle.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. So that's um, it is static. You're indoor, and you can't crash. The mountain bike feature and the steering, which you obviously can also do with your race bike, but you're on your mountain bike on a Swift course, and it will help you steer. It's a nice feature, and I honestly I don't think that a lot of people are using it, but it's just a nice break for something else. You can
Right.
you can earn a badge if you do that, and you can try to, let's say, master that mountain bike course. But it's probably something for more for the future also, where they are looking at,
Right.
okay, how can we expand and how can we make it more interactive? The the amount of
Yeah, they said it's a beta.
yeah.
They said it's a beta, and what's interesting is you ride on the road and then you see the trail off to the side.
Exactly.
Have you ridden it,
No, I haven't. No, I
Jerry?
haven't. No,
Okay.
but I know.
Yeah,
And
so
for
it's part of the road.
yeah,
Yeah, it's part of the road course. So you just go up the road course and then you see a trail to the left and you take it, and then it all of a sudden changes to something completely different,
exactly. Yeah,
which I think is neat. Like I thought they would create their own world for it or their own course, but no, it's just they just included it in the existing Watopia, so it's
yeah,
neat.
yeah. It
Yeah.
is, and I've seen a couple of videos on it, and I know that most people that I know did try it, and you're right. You go, let's say, off road, and then do the mountain bike course. So
Yeah.
it is interesting, and that's one of the things when you ride in Watopia or something else. Now, for a longer time, you already also have running, but you also have a track, a running track in
Oh, really?
Watopia, where you can basically do the 400 meter track, and you can just run laps there. So that's interesting. And the rumor is that they will be adding rowing to
Mm.
the Swift platform. There's a lot of water around Watopia, the virtual world
Yeah.
of Swift. So they anticipate that rowing will be the next virtual, let's say, addition to Watopia. So that will be
Yeah.
interesting.
That's great.
Okay, I've got a final topic, and unless I forgot something, I think those were the topics that we wanted to discuss. Let's say in this first edition of our Friday night cycling cafe,
Mm.
right? So that's I have to say, absolutely a friend of the show, Tim Grash. He does virtual workouts on Swift out of his studio. Obviously, nobody is able to train in his studio, so together with two of his coaches, they created this workout structure to go on Swift, and it's fun. I've done it a couple of times now, and it's free of charge. You can make a donation if you want, but also I would highly recommend that. I'm looking for his emails without disclosing too much, let's say, information. Yep. Let me switch to the other screen again. So this is his weekly email, um, and you see the strength training. So he does 2 or 3 of these virtual training sessions, very well prepared. There's music, there is the training program, which you have to load into your Swift. Obviously, Tim and one of the coaches are there, so you get some pointers, some instructions during the ride, and on average there are between 10 and maybe 20 people joining that workout, and it's really interesting because it's a group setup, and they have the feature enabled, which is called Elastic Band. So you stay together as a group while you are doing the workout. So it's not that somebody takes off and you won't see each other anymore and it's still individual. No, you stay together with the group, and the software basically um, still calculates your strength, your wattage that you need to do, the RPMs that you do with your smart trainer, and you still stay together. So that's super interesting. If you need to do some maintenance, he has a pickup and delivery service. Go check him out. He's also on Instagram and on his website. So if there are any questions, bike fitting, the studio work, virtual studio work, and maintenance, Tim is there to help you.
Yeah, I see a lot of his photos on Instagram delivering bikes and
Yeah.
even getting custom bikes for people, building new custom bikes, which is great.
Yeah.
We want to see more people out there riding, right? That's the goal.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
I love to get everybody's feedback, so don't hesitate to leave a comment. Honest, constructive feedback is always welcome, and be nice. It's so it's the first time I enjoyed myself. I hope you did too,
Yeah,
Geoff.
thanks for putting this up. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is great.
yeah. Go out and listen to the podcast, and we'll we'll see everybody again on Friday, or in real life. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a
Sounds
great
great.
weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Geoff.
All right, bye.
Bye bye.